I'm the chairman, Mike Patnode, and I hereby call to order the January 14, 2021 meeting of the Kingston Springs Regional Planning Commission. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16, this meeting is being conducted with no physical public access. The meeting is being made available, however, to the public participants via live video stream on the Zoom application. So now we'll go to the agenda. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
So now we'll do a roll call of voting members. Keith Allgood.
Present.
Tony Campbell. Absent. Tom Cullen.
Here.
Tony Gross.
Here.
Brian McCain.
Here.
Mike Patnode here. Glenn Remick.
Here.
Chuck Slater.
Here.
And Bob Stoller.
Here.
All right. Thanks, guys. Non-voting staff, Sharon Armstrong.
Here.
John Lawless.
Here.
Martha Brooke Perry.
Here.
And Brittany Stanley.
Not at the moment.
Okay. All right. So let me see what, I declare the quorum. Okay. And do I have a motion to approve that Kingston Springs Regional Planning Commission finds that conducting this meeting by electronic means is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare in light of COVID-19 pandemic?
So motion.
Okay, motion by Tom Cullen, so seconded by,
I'll second Tony Gross.
okay. All right, so do we need to take a roll call vote on this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So all in favor of the motion, Keith Allgood?
Yes.
Tony Campbell? Not here. Tom Cullen?
Yes.
Tony Gross?
Yes.
Brian McCain?
Yes.
Mike Patnode, I vote yes. Glenn Remick?
Yes.
Chuck Slater?
Yes.
And Bob Stoller?
Yes.
Okay, now at this point, I'll turn the meeting over to City Manager John Lawless for election of the Regional Planning Commission Chair. And if anybody out there really wants to be, or really wants someone else to be, I would be just as happy. So don't let me get in your way. All right, so John, you got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll now open the floor to nominations for Chairman of the Kingston Springs Regional Planning Commission.
I nominate Mike Patnode.
I second it. I second it, Glenn.
John, are you taking the vote?
I am. Any other nominations? With no additional nominations heard, motion for nominations to cease.
Motion.
Who's that?
Keith.
Keith, thank you, Keith. Second.
Second, Stoller.
Thank you, Bob. Martha Brooke, do I need to do a roll call on nomination ceasing?
Yes, technically you do under the executive order.
We'll do a roll call of Keith Allgood.
Yes.
Tony Campbell is absent. Tom Cullen.
Yes.
Tony Gross.
Yes.
Brian McCain.
Yes.
Mike Patnode.
Yes.
Glenn Remick.
Yes.
Chuck Slater.
Yes.
Bob Stoller.
Yes.
Nominations have ceased. We'd like to get a roll call vote for all in favor of Mike Patnode as the chairman of the Kingston Springs Regional Planning Commission. Keith Allgood.
Aye. Yes. Sorry.
Tony Campbell is absent. Tom Cullen.
Yes.
Tony Gross.
Yes.
Brian McCain.
Yes.
Mike Patnode.
Yes.
Glenn Remick.
Yes.
Chuck Slater.
Yes.
Bob Stoller.
Yes.
I will now turn the meeting back over to Chair Patnode for election of Vice Chair and Secretary. Congratulations, Mike.
Thank you very much. So now I will take nominations for the Vice Chair.
I nominate Tony Campbell, Chuck Slater.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I move the nominations be closed.
All right, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we now have to take a roll call vote, right, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a vote on that the nominations for the vice chair be closed. Keith Allgood,
Yes, aye.
Tony Campbell. That's right, he's absent. Tom Cullen,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Brian McCain,
Yes.
Mike Patno, yes. Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Chuck Slater,
Yes.
and Bob Stoller.
Yes.
And, okay, so that's, the nominations are closed, right? That's what we just did, right, John? Okay, so now we're going to vote for the only nomination, Tony Campbell for the vice chair. I'll go through the roll call again. Is that, or do we need a motion for that?
No.
No, okay. So now we'll vote on Tony Campbell for the vice chair. Keith Allgood,
Yes.
Tony Campbell's absent. Tom Cullen,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Brian McCain,
Yes.
Mike
What's that?
Patno, yes. Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Chuck Slater,
Yes.
and Bob Stoller.
Yes.
Okay, so now Tony Campbell's the vice chair. We will now take nominations for the secretary.
Oh, my, I didn't touch that. Way to go. Give me a second.
Any nominations for the secretary? I nominate Chuck Slater. Can I nominate somebody, John?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was about to do
I
it too.
nominate Chuck Slater for the secretary.
Second.
Second.
Okay, do we have any other nominations?
Move the nominations be closed.
Okay,
Second. Tony.
all right, we'll vote that the nominations are
That's
closed
first.
for secretary. Keith Allgood,
Aye.
Tony Campbell, that's right, he's absent. Tom Cullen,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
So that's the second. We're about to put the second pack sale in.
Brian Mc, you're gonna do what, Keith? He's getting off for a second. Brian McCain,
Yes. Yeah.
Mike
Yes.
Patno, yes.
He hasn't asked for it yet.
Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Chuck Slater,
Yes.
and Bob Stoller.
Yes.
Okay, so, and that was that the nomination is closed. Is that right, John?
Correct.
Okay, so now we're going to vote for the secretary. The only nomination is Chuck Slater. Keith Allgood,
Yes.
Tony Campbell, not here. Tom Cullen,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Mike Patno, yes. Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Chuck Slater,
Of course.
Bob Stoller. Okay,
Brian McCain.
Yeah.
Yes.
we've got everybody. All right, what's the next item on the agenda?
Chairman,
Let's-
I apologize. Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
you
yes, ma'am.
skipped Brian McCain in that
I
vote.
did what? I skipped him?
Yeah, yes,
Oh.
sir.
Okay, Brian McCain on Chuck Slater for secretary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's see where we are. So you
Number 7.
have the planning commission meeting minutes before you from December 10th.
Move to approve. Chuck Slater.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, Glenn.
Okay, all right, we'll vote to approve the minutes from December. Keith Allgood?
Yes.
Tony Campbell, no, not here. Tom Cullen?
Yes.
Tony Gross?
Yes.
Brian McCain?
Yes.
Mike Patno? Yes. Glenn Remick?
Yes.
Chuck Slater?
Yes.
Bob Stoller?
Yes.
And just to correct myself, I did not mean Tony Campbell voted no. Okay, just means he's not here. So now we have a motion to approve this agenda, which you have before you. Do we have a
So
motion?
move. Chuck Slater.
Okay,
Second, Bob Stoller.
okay.
Bezos
And here
person.
we go again on approving this agenda. Keith Allgood,
Where's someone? Yes.
Tony Campbell, Tom Cullen,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Brian McCain,
Yes.
Mike Patno. Yes, Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Chuck Slater,
Yes.
Bob Stoller.
Yes.
Okay. Old business, none. New business, Scanlon, South Harpeth Road, minor subdivision, final plat, map 100, parcel 2.02.
John, can you put that up?
Yes. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Sharon, would you like to comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting on the chairman.
I'm sorry I had to. Anyway, something was going on in my house. It's not going on anymore. So anyway, go ahead.
Thank you. This plat has been submitted on behalf of Besley Scanlon. She is dividing this property into 2 lots. There is still some question as to whether this property lies partially or not partially within the city limits. I believe that the city attorney and John are working on that. However, regardless of whether it lies within the city limits or outside of the city limits, it makes no difference in the way the planning commission reviews the plat, because regardless of if it's the city or the urban growth boundary, we still use our subdivision regulations to review this. So I have reviewed the plat, and it does meet all of the city requirements for the subdivision of the property. The owner, it's somewhat of a large parcel. She uses it for some agricultural use. There's flood area in the back, as you can see on the back part of the property. The new lot that she's creating, the purpose of that lot is to provide a lot to build her son a house next door to her so that he will live next door to her as they age out. Any questions?
How big is the lot?
You'll scroll down, John. I apologize, Mr. Cullen. This is probably the 10th one I've looked at. There you go. Lot 2, the remaining lot is 4 acres. Lot 1 is 1 acre.
Okay. Was that flooded during the 2010 event?
The rear of the property was flooded, but it did not approach the house or the other buildings that are on the lot, the accessory buildings.
And does this connect to sewage?
No.
It does not.
Okay. So is the 1 acre lot to build a house on?
It has been this originally started in the county. It's a rather involved story, and I don't want to take up a large part of your time. But originally, the property owner approached the county. At that time, they allowed ADUs, accessory dwelling units, where you could have 2 residences on 1 lot. Somewhere in between the time that she sought her subsurface sewage permit and the time that she was ready to subdivide the lot, they changed their regulations. They no longer allow ADUs in this particular way. So as she discussed that with me, because it's in our urban growth area, our boundary, we are the reviewing agency. So it got to us some, I believe, 21 months after her first interaction with the county planning commission. So we received it after all of that had occurred, and to us, it's just a simple subdivide, and it meets the regulations. So
it's hard to, it does meet the regulations for no sewage,
Yes,
1 acre and all that.
and she did have it perked. There was a perk test done. She was in the process and had a permit, a subsurface sewage system permit from the Department of Environment Conservation before it was discovered that she needed to come to us because she's in our urban growth boundary.
Okay. So Sharon, it sounds like you see no problems with this request.
No, sir, I do not. And I think that in the future, you will likely see more of these as people reach a certain age or as their children seek a place to live that's more affordable. We'll probably get more of these.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for Sharon Armstrong?
How large is lot 1?
1 acre.
1 acre. It is 1 acre. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
Is there a certain distance that they have to have the house away from the road?
Well, then you can see the setback lines
Yes.
on lot 1. It's 45 feet. And then on the side setbacks are 20 feet and the rear setbacks are 30 feet in this zone. There's a house already on lot 2, the original parcel. You can see the residence and you can see the accessory structure next to it.
I have an aerial view, yeah.
Okay, so you can see those.
Okay.
I move
All right.
approval.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion for approval with a second. So if I can see the roll call list. I don't have it memorized. So on the vote to approve, Keith Allgood,
Yes.
Tony Campbell, not here. Tom Cullen,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Brian McCain.
Abstained.
Okay, Mike Patnode, yes. Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Chuck Slater,
Yes.
Bob Stoller.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda.
I
Pardon
apologize,
me?
Chairman. I wanted to make one observation. The only distinction between us reviewing these here is on the signature certificates that are attached to the plat. If the property is determined to lie in the county, then the county road superintendent will sign off on the road connection. If it lies within the city, then the city will sign off for streets and roads. So
Okay.
that's the distinction for the urban growth boundary for us.
Okay, thank you. So the McPherson PUD is deferred, so I understand there's no discussion today on that. Is that right, John?
That is correct. Unless
Okay.
Sharon wants to, do you want to provide any input, or is that sufficient?
I think that the only input that I would have is that there appears to be an issue with the easement agreement between Ms. Downs and Mr. McPherson.
Okay, which would be discussed when that's brought. Now, do we have to, is that design review committee for the McPherson item?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to do that.
No, sir.
Okay, so we're now down to item C. And this is going to be presented by staff, I guess, establishing fees for design committee review, et cetera. Yeah, conditional use fees, change of use fees, and rezone request fees.
Sharon, did you want to start off? Do you want me to start off?
I think we're ambivalent. John, I'm fine if you go ahead and start this discussion, and then if I need to add something to it, then, or Martha, then we will.
Back in June of this past year, we had updated the fee schedule for permits through the Board of Commissioners. As we lived with those updates and we started a little more investigation onto the origin of some of these fees that were initially set, we found a couple of things that we wanted to update. And so Sharon, Debbie, and I had some pretty extensive conversations about the fee schedules, not only for our permit applications, but also for our review boards and for the Planning Commission. And we will be presenting those to the Board of Commissioners through an ordinance that Martha Brooke drafted that I emailed to everyone late this afternoon. As far as the Planning Commission and how that impacts the board here, I will defer to Sharon and to Martha Brooke on the on expanding on that information.
Sharon, you may grab this or you want to?
I'll start Martha Brooke, and then you
Okay.
can, when we get to the other end. Where this impacts the Planning Commission, there are several places where fees have not been collected for things that need to be done. Rezoning is one. There are advertising costs for the city for a petition to rezone. The map has to be changed, which causes interaction with staff, with APSU to get the zoning map layer changed. But we have not been charging a fee to petition for rezone, which your bylaws contain. One of the other areas where we have expended a great deal of time project dependent is on design review. If it's a simple design review where the applicant simply brings you architectural materials, there's really very little staff time involved in that. But in other cases, if you think back, and I discussed this with you several months ago, the Thornton's lighting plan, where we expended a huge number of hours working through the lighting plan, the landscape plan, the other things. So we're establishing a fee for design review committee, which you will note on the list you see in front of you is a pass-through. That does not impose a hardship on an applicant that has a very simple application to the design review committee, but it does pass through staff time to review complex complicated, time-consuming documents to the developer for larger projects. And I use the lighting plan for Thornton's as an example. Traffic study would be another example. Landscape plans that are very involved would be another example. Those are all things that are heard by the design review committee, and we expend a huge number of hours, and the taxpayers shouldn't have to absorb those costs for a new development or an ongoing one. So that's, if you look at the list of things, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, if you look at the list of things that are involving the Planning Commission, for commercial, it's a concept site plan, a preliminary plat, a final plat, a final recorded plat revision. Sometimes when people, they'll come back to us after a plat has been recorded for a subdivision and ask to re-subdivide or move a property line. Construction drawing reviews, sometimes we revolutionize construction plans 4 or 5 times before they're complete. Plan review is a simple thing. When somebody brings you a set of plans for a large residential structure, they may not necessarily go to the detail of commercial plans, but it takes a great deal of time to go through those. Planning Commission rezone request, again, I brought that up. We're not charging a fee for it. And there are advertising costs and other things that the city incurs that are not being reimbursed by the applicant. Change of use request is another one. It has to be reviewed before it's brought to you. That takes staff time. It's a minimal fee of $100, and then a conditional use permit. Those are a little more involved because it's not only a zoning question, it's a traffic question and an infrastructure question. So those are the things that I had a great deal of discussion with John and Debbie about, that structuring these fees needs to be consistent, that it needs to be done in a way that actually looks at the amount of time rather than just assigning a label to something and charging a fee without any thought given to how much it costs to do it. These haven't been updated in probably, when was that last one done, Martha Brooke? The appendix A was,
I mean, Appendix A, it's gone back to, I think, 2004, 2005. And you've got various resolutions and ordinances over the years. So, and one other thing, these not just these fees that you see in front of you, but I know that John and Sharon and Debbie also looked at sewer tap fees and, basically any amount of money that somebody coming to the town and pulling a permit or doing an appeal or asking for, a variance or whatever, fees that were collected by the town. And what they discovered as the more they got into this is that those fees are all over the place, tucked in all different kinds of records, some of which are easy to find, some of which are hard to find, some of which refer to one fee. And then I think we found modifications where we were charging another one and we were having a hard time putting the pieces together. So John and I talked about it because Debbie had suggested that we do this ordinance so that we have it in one. Ordinances are typically easier to locate, keep our hands on for indexing purposes than resolutions. And so she recommended, let's get it all in an ordinance. And the more John and I talked about it, we said, well, let's pull everything together. We have an Appendix A to our municipal code currently that sets out a very basic list of fees. And then as Sharon and I've said, other fees come in here, there, and yonder, zoning ordinances, in your sign ordinance, in the different things we've passed over the years. And so I sat down and went through municipal code, all the different titles in there, through the zoning ordinance, through subdivision regulations, through the sign ordinance and the various different things that we have, and made reference to every fee I could find. And then what I came up with for presentation to the commissioners next week, lost my earpiece, was one ordinance that attempts to consolidate everything and put all fees in that Exhibit A, Appendix A to the municipal code. So it's one-stop shopping to see what our fees are for everything you could possibly want to do for real property in Kingston Springs, with the exception of the development tax, which, because that's a tax, it's its own separate little pocket over there, so we're not messing with that. And our FEMA ordinance also references an appeal fee of $100. I left that as it was because I didn't want to trigger any kind of review or anything like that with FEMA. I figured next time we do a rate map change, we may can look at doing it at that point in time, or leave it alone. Sharon, we'll talk about that at that point. But everything else fee-wise is intended to be incorporated in this Appendix A. And as I was drafting that for commission next week, this afternoon, I realized this is actually going to be technically changing the zoning ordinance, which of course Planning Commission has to approve. So that's why you got that late this afternoon, is because it just keyed in with me that even though we were asking you guys to do these changes in the fees, we also need to ask you all to approve us changing those segments of the zoning ordinance that you see in what was sent to you this afternoon to allow for those fees to be pulled out of zoning and reflected in the Appendix A. The net effect of that, in some places in your zoning ordinance, you had already given the commission the right to set those fees. Some of those, in Article 8, I think 8.060, 080, and 090 had a specific fee of like $25 for a variance request and a special exception request. Some of those, we're just pulling those out and just asking you to allow us to just put that the commission can set those. So the net effect of that is you won't be coming back in if those need to be changed at a later date. Planning Commission won't have to request that or review that before Board of Commission. Board of Commission can automatically do that. Of course, there'll be 2 readings, but they would do the fees and make those changes without having to come back and change the actual zoning ordinance book every time we wanted to change a fee.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
I have a comment.
Yes,
First
sir.
of all, I lost the picture, so I don't know if it's just me or somebody else. Secondly, the word conditional needs to be spelled correctly.
I noticed that too, Tom, but I didn't say anything.
Well, they're blaming me for that.
Third
That was,
section,
that's-
third section of it. So
Yep, thank you, Tom.
So a question I have, you went through this, but I didn't follow. I see all the fees, and then I see on the design review committee plan review, I see this phrase pass through to consultant. Is that a standard phrase? I don't understand it. I don't know. What is the fee? Is it determined by staff, or what is really happening with that phrase?
it's determined by the number of hours, Chairman Patno.
Oh, okay. I got you. That makes sense.
At the staff, whichever
Okay.
staff member inherits it, it's by the hour for them.
Okay.
What we're running into is a huge number of hours on some projects that were being passed through to the taxpayer rather than the applicant because of
Okay.
an extraordinary amount of time.
Okay. So pass through to applicant or pass through to consultant?
It's passed through, the fee is passed through to the applicant
Okay.
for that.
Okay. So is that worded correctly?
It's not the normal routine. As an example,
I just meant the use of the word
we-
consultant in there. Should that word be applicant, or is it correct the way you have it?
pass through
I lost the picture.
to consultant. I bill the hours. Then
Okay, I got you.
They
I
pass
got
those extra hours that I use
Okay.
to the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
There's an
Sorry.
ordinance already in place with the city for that mechanism. It's been there.
Okay.
It just hasn't made its way to design review because it's still kind of a relatively new board. in the
Okay.
planning.
I'm afraid I just cut you off.
So, all right. So is this something we need to approve?
Yes, we are asking you all to approve in the email
see-
that I think John sent out this afternoon, the ordinance that I had prepared for commission next week, where it's saying we want to change the zoning ordinance to allow the commission to set fees in Appendix A rather than having a numerical value in the zoning ordinance itself. We're asking for you all to approve that. And then it'll go before the Board of Commissioners for 2 readings.
Okay, so we are approving or recommending approval of this ordinance.
Correct. And there's several things in that ordinance. For example, there's changes to the municipal code, which of course is not in y'all's purview, but there are, as I said, I caught late this afternoon, there are a couple of references specifically to amending the zoning ordinance. And that is in your purview and requires your review and approval.
Okay, so what would be our motion to approve this?
So I would say it would be a motion to recommend approval of the amendments to the zoning ordinance as contained in this ordinance that you see before you all.
Okay,
So
thank you, Dr.
move,
Brooks.
Chuck Slater.
Chuck Slater makes the motion.
Second, Tony Gross.
Tony Gross seconds. Okay, we'll take a vote.
Coming.
Thank you, John. Keith Allgood,
Yes.
Tony Campbell, not here, Tom Cullen,
Yes.
Tony Gross,
Yes.
Brian McCain,
Yes.
Mike Patnode, yes, Glenn Remick,
Yes.
Chuck Slater,
Yes.
and Bob Stoller.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. What's next?
Number 11.
Discussion only zoning limitation on accessory use structures. Okay. Who's got that?
I do. As you know, we brought to you ordinance for the district of 5.300 or downtown overlay district. And within that ordinance, it allows for conditional uses that have to be approved by the planning commission, one by one. So as we look at these things and as they move forward, I'm going to start capturing a list of things as applicants come before us that may capture your concerns with the use of, say, an accessory structure for an applicant who wants to do an art studio or who wants to do some other thing in there. I'll just start to capture a list of those so that as we move forward, we may need to go back and look at section 3.100 of our zoning ordinance as it applies to accessory uses. Is everybody following me? So as we do the conditional use, it may impact another section of the ordinance. So we may come back to you in the future with amendments to section 3.100, which is our accessory use section, as we look at these conditional uses. So it's just a heads up.
Okay. Any questions for Sharon on this? Okay. So are we adjourning the meeting now and having a training session, or what's next, John?
Chairman, we would like to include this short training session in the structure and confines of the meeting rather than adjourning. So if
Okay. So is that's an other item to be added to the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So proceed, right?
Yes, Sharon, if you'd like to proceed.
Yes, would you put that screen up for me, John?
Yes. 1 second.
This is your first training session for the year, so congratulations. It'll be short. It's literally this short that you see on your screen. So I want to have a general conversation with the Planning Commission, and you're going to be receiving a Planning Commissioner's Handbook that's put out by the state of Tennessee. It's 69 pages. It may serve as a reference, may help you in some areas. But tonight I want to talk about ex parte communication. Black's Law Dictionary, as you can see on the screen, defines that as on one side only, by or for one party, done for or behalf of, or on the application of one party only. Simply stated, a contact is ex parte in nature if all parties involved are not properly notified of the contact. Part of your required training from the state of Tennessee includes ethics. So this is going to be our ethics training for the year. When you are faced with dealing with an ex parte communication or you're asked to participate in one, first I would like to ask if somebody could give me an example of what an ex parte communication for a planning commissioner might be. What situation do you think might be ex parte, or would you prefer that I gave you one?
You give us one.
All right. So someone calls you on the telephone and said, look, I'm thinking about presenting this proposal to the Planning Commission, and I'm going to use, I don't know, John Lawless is going to be my planning commissioner tonight. So John, I really want you to go in there and fight for me on this application. I really want you to explain to them what the benefit to the town is. I really want you to try to help them come to the right decision for me. I'm the property owner. So that's an example of an ex parte communication. And it's because any communication that occurs with an applicant who has something that's before you or is coming before you, or they want to come before you, outside of the walls of the Planning Commission meeting is considered an ex parte communication. Now, applicants can ask you questions. You know, they can say, you know, what's the process for submitting to it, but you can't, as a planning commissioner, obligate yourself outside of a public venue on any application that comes to you. So that's number one, refuse to be obligated to a particular side of any issue, and it may be the other side of the fence. The neighboring property owner may call you and say, I don't want them to put that there. You're going to get those calls, but your job as a planning commissioner until you come into the planning commission room is not to express an opinion about how you're going to vote or not going to vote. And then any information that an applicant shares with you, whether it's by phone, by email, or by document, is subject to public records search. Even your personal emails. As John can tell you, when public records come in, it doesn't matter if it's my company email, which is not a city email. You know, I have a company email. It's still subject to public records request. And the last public records request we got, I didn't have a whole lot to put forward because I'm careful with my conversations. So, but just so that you know that any of your documents are subject to public records request, or any of your communication devices.
Sharon, I'll interject here. That includes text messages on your personal phone as well.
It does. I was about to say the phone calls, the text messages, the Facebook stuff, anything that you have is subject to public records request.
Now, Sharon, you mean anything we have that is pertaining to a planning commission business?
Yes, sir.
Okay, not all of our personal text.
No, not your personal information, but anything having to do
pertaining
with
to
commission business sent to you by anyone is subject to public records request.
Right.
And disclosure. And if
Right.
someone contacts you on an item, you're supposed to disclose that to the planning commission at the next meeting. If you have a conversation or telephone call or text or email.
So I have a question on that.
Certainly.
If somebody calls me and says, hey, Mike, you know, we have this item on the planning commission, blah, 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 and I really need your support. I got that loud and clear. If somebody calls me and says, hey, Mike, you know, I'm trying to get this, I'm working on this thing with the planning commission. Is that something you can talk about? And I say, no, I cannot talk about it. So the first one, I definitely have to report. Is the second one something I have to report?
No, if you don't engage in conversation, Martha Brooke, for me, that's a finite line. I don't think you specifically have to say, John called me and I told him no. John's the developer. I'm using John Wallace as the developer of the property.
Okay.
So if John calls you and says, you know, I really want to talk to you about this, and you say, I'm not gonna discuss that with you outside the planning commission, I don't think you have to disclose that because nothing occurred.
Okay.
You refuse to engage.
As long as there's no information given, and as long as I'm not implying anything. Okay.
And then the next one is insist that any and all information offered to an individual planning commissioner be withdrawn or presented to the whole commission. So if someone said, I just want to show you this, you know, I want to show you how good it's going to be for the town. I want to show you what I'm doing. I'm putting playgrounds in. John has decided that he wants to put an in-ground swimming pool and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he wants to show you that. What you say in that instance is that has to be submitted to City Hall and delivered to the entire planning commission. Again, everything has to be done inside the room. You can't visit a site by yourself.
Okay.
It has to be the whole planning commission or nobody at all. Because that can be construed as having input on the development. Written information concerning an upcoming action of the planning commission should be made available to all planning commission members. And I used to refer to this as the good, bad, or ugly rule. It doesn't matter if they're complaining, if they're saying something they shouldn't likely say or shouldn't politely say about staff. It doesn't matter. All information that somebody sends to you as a planning commissioner, good, bad, ugly, has to come to the planning commission. Emails, everything. So it's good to have these little reminders every now and then. And before I take a phone call, respond to a phone call, or send an email, I'm always aware that even though I'm a consultant, because I do the city's business on your behalf, everything that I do is subject to public search. So it's just a good reminder for everybody.
Sharon, if I could also jump in here too to add to what you're saying with respect to information coming in to our planning commission members or driving by the site yourself to inspect it relative to something that is coming up. When you consider something before this body to make a decision on it, you are only supposed to be considering what has been publicly presented to the planning commission. So there has been case law where decisions of the planning commission were overturned because you had one or two of them of their own volition who drove out to the site to look at it themselves. Well, that gave them information that probably and most likely affected their decision making that was not part of what the rest of the body had. And so there is case law that you can be undoing what's approved on the planning commission surely by the fact that you intentionally or unintentionally become in possession of knowledge that other members don't have.
And
May I comment, please?
certainly.
During my long tenure with the County Planning Commission on rezoning issues, we were encouraged to go and look at the site before the item came up before the Planning Commission.
You were, and you were encouraged by a number of people to do that.
Including yourself.
Including myself. We actually went to one development as a group. Everybody went. So I don't know, Mr. Cullen, if I agree that I specifically told you to go look at a site other than Miss Montgomery, because she constantly said the signs weren't there. We'd post them and somebody would take them. But
Well, it may not have been you, but it was the chairman that we were encouraged to do it. And
yes, sir.
and
one of the reasons why we do these training sessions, this particular type, the way that we do, is we're trying specifically I'm not calling anybody out. I'm really not. We're not trying to do that. What I'm trying to say is this is your kind of print one out and keep it with you if you have a question, planning commission thing. And you are correct, Mr. Cullen, the sitting chairman in several jurisdictions that I attend still gives that advice to people. So it's just everybody goes or nobody goes. That's kind of the way the rule has, because it puts you in a position that the other planning commissioners don't care.
And if it is a situation where the whole body is going, that needs to be advertised because it's technically a public meeting at that point. Now, whether or not somebody's going to drive out there and join you guys is one thing, but you at least have to post notice like we do, for any other meeting or specially called meeting that says you all are going to be as a body on this piece of property at this time and date.
Right. And this comes up because for a couple of reasons, a couple of recent events that I'm not going to get into. I traveled south last month and actually sat in a planning commission meeting in another jurisdiction where one of the planning commissioners said I drove out to the site and talked to the neighbor next door, and here's why I'm voting no. And I'm like, you can't do that. It's if you happen to drive by it on your way home, good for you. But these are the ground rules that the state establishes to keep your planning commission clean. So, and it's not a fun topic, but it's one that we have to visit at least once a year.
Okay.
Any questions?
I'm glad I learned this. Any questions? Okay. John, is there any other
Move to
business?
adjourn.
By the way, thank you, Martha Brooke and Sharon. Thank you very much. We have a motion to adjourn. We got a second?
Second.
Okay. I think we're adjourned, unless somebody doesn't want to.
I would like to interject. Thank you for everybody that's submitted your statement of disclosure of interests. If you have not, deadline is the end of the month. Please do so.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing you in person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.